Hey friends, I'm Scott Hanselman, and this is Things They Don't Teach You in School. Here's the deal with all of these different videos, and I would encourage you to check out videos 1 and 2, where I talk about things like carriage returns, is maybe you did learn these in school. It's a good title for a show. If you know these things, maybe don't worry about it. Share the video with someone who could use it. Maybe you know most of the things, and I give you a couple of tips or hotkeys or ideas that you haven't thought about. But the intent with these videos is to fill in some of the small gaps that I think we all find in our techie experience, in our computer journey. One of the things that I realized as I've been doing this for almost 30 years is I'm fairly comfortable editing text. And you might be an Emacs user, you might be a Vim user, you might be a Visual Studio Code user. Everyone's different. I could do an entire video on just Vim or an entire video on key bindings and macros and things in Emacs. But I'm realizing that there are some basic editing techniques in editors like JetBrains, Visual Studio Code, Notepad, Word that people don't know. Where do you learn these? There's not a text editing class. Very rarely do we sit down and say, you know, I need to spend more time being a better text editor. For those of you that have done that, good for you for your deliberate practice. But for the rest of us, we find ourselves moving slowly. I think sometimes you'll see newer developers doing this. Here's my cursor, and I'm using Visual Studio Code. I'll be using VS Code for everything. And you'll see them do this. They're selecting some text, and they'll go up to the thing. And then they'll go copy, they'll go down here, and then they'll go paste. Maybe they'll right click. They forget that the hotkeys are right here. We shouldn't make them feel bad. We should just let them know that there are a couple of hotkeys, a couple of techniques that they could potentially learn that would make them more effective. Because the idea is, as you have your hands on the keyboard, and then you move to the mouse, and you move back, and you move to the mouse. That's a context switch. It's a small one, but it's enough to slow you down. Those things add up. So what kind of editing can you do primarily at the keyboard to be as effective as possible? So again, there are lots of advanced techniques. This is a beginner video, but I want to talk about some stuff. So I'm in VS Code. VS Code does have a thing called screencast mode. I'm not going to be using that. I'm using instead an app called Karnak. So if you look in the lower right-hand corner there, as I move up, 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 you see how Karnak is saying up times 3, 1, 2, 3. Or if I go and say something like Control A, you see how it just said I pressed Control A. That'll make it easier for me to express this to you all as we go and move through our text editor here. Now, I've just got a bunch of lorem ipsum. This is not real text. It doesn't mean anything. It's not Latin. It's fake. I'm just using it as a bit of example text. I'll switch over to JSON and some C# as we go and do this. But I wanted to give you a few examples. So, starting with some text, let's remind ourselves of a few things. First, in a text editor, you see how this has line 1, and I've clicked just to the left of the line number there. And you see how when I'm over here, my cursor's like this. When I go over here, it turns to the side. That happens in Microsoft Word as well. Clicking just to the left of the line number there, or just outside the margin, selects the entire line. But you'll notice I have word wrap turned on. In Visual Studio Code, I can hit Control P, type a greater than sign, and then I could say toggle word wrap. Also Alt Z will do that for you. So here I'm going Alt Z. See, it says toggle word wrap, Alt Z. Everything's on one line here. So I'm going to keep it like this. The word wrap is not done. I have very, very long lines here. I'm going to scroll to the right using the mouse. See how long these lines are? Basically, each paragraph is a line. So that's one thing to note. We'll stay in word wrap mode for now. Now, as I move up and down, I'm just using the arrows on my keyboard here. All right, this is just doing this. Down, 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 down. A lot of people, when they're just starting out, don't realize that if you're at the beginning of the line like this and you hold down Shift, I'm holding down Shift and I'm going to go Shift, down, 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 down. And I've just selected 3 lines, okay? I'm going to let go of Shift and I'm just going to hit up. The selection goes away. You really don't need to be doing this with your mouse unless you are going to be selecting a lot of text. Okay? Now, notice where my cursor is. It's in the middle of line 9 there. I'm going to hit Home. Home puts me at the beginning of the line. You can see there in the lower right corner, Karnak is telling you I pushed Home. I'm going to hit End. Look, I go all the way to the end of the line. I'm going to hold down Shift and I'm going to go Shift Home. Shift Home selected the entire line. Holding down Shift and going up, 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 I can get everything. I can also hold down Shift and go page down. That's interesting. Shift page down. Now you'll notice that Karnak down there said Shift Next. Got a little confused. I'm actually going Shift page down or Shift page up. There we go. There's Shift page up showing up there. We'll wait for that to go away. Shift page up so I can get a whole page. When you are double clicking with your mouse, when you are using your mouse, clicking once, of course, moves your cursor around. Double clicking gets a word. Triple clicking, 1, 2, 3, click, 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 gets the whole paragraph. Click, click, click. So that's a little trick that you might want to know. Click, 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 click. 4 clicks in quick succession selects all. The same thing as hitting Control A. Control A means select all. Some people like to copy and paste with Control X, cut, Control Z, undo, Control X, home, Control V, paste, down, down, home. Now, instead of Shift and End, which will go to the entire line, or Shift and right arrow, I'm holding down Shift with my left finger and I'm moving one character at a time. I could go Shift Control right. Look at that. One word at a time. So home, Shift to the right, Shift Control, one word at a time. Now you're going to want to try these several times to get comfortable with it. You're going to want to find it intuitive. You have one hand on the left-hand side of the keyboard if you've got 2 hands. Shift, Control, and Alt are all within a few fingers. I go like this, Shift, Control, Alt, all within a few fingers. I'm resting my hand on Shift, Control, and Alt like this. Okay? And then my right hand rests over on the inverted T. And I can move around very cleanly like that. Now we did Shift for selection. We can hold down Control without the Shift, and you can see I can move from word to word. If I hit Shift Alt left or right, I can actually expand the selection. So for example, let's go Shift to the right, and I've selected on line 7 there, the L. I'm going to go Shift Alt right arrow. That expanded my selection. You see it says expand AST select. That's abstract syntax tree. It's a smart expand, especially if you're using some code. We're just doing some text. Hit it again, expanded, hit it again, even more. Now if we did this in some JavaScript, or something a little bit more interesting, it's more contextual. Look at that. That's kind of cool. So I'm sitting here inside of this text, Shift Alt right arrow, right arrow, right arrow, right arrow. That's a lot faster than going and getting that exactly the way I want it. So that is a smart select. You can think about it as an expansion. So if I'm in the middle of a chunk of code, I can go Shift Alt right, 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 see? And it's swelling, expanding inside of that bracket, that block of code. Now, as I've moved over into some JavaScript here, some JSON, you'll notice that I've got these brackets. It's important to note that a smart editor like Visual Studio Code, when I click on the bracket, you see the other bracket lights up over here to let you know that it's available. Sometimes those brackets are far away. You'll be on one page here. I'm on line 653, and I'm like, golly whiz, where is that other bracket? I don't know where that is. I can go Shift, Control, backslash, and I can hop between those matching brackets. You don't have to memorize all of these things. It depends on what you're doing. Once you memorize the couple 5 or 10 that you need, you're going to be a lot more effective. Let's move back over to our fake Latin, and I'm going to hit Alt-Z again to toggle my word wrap. You'll notice when I start selecting here, even though this is on a single line, I'm selecting within that long line, okay? Sometimes you'll find yourselves when programming or when editing text, and you're going to want to make a change like here. Maybe I want to insert something here, here, and here. You see how I did that manually? What you can do is you can hold down Alt, and look at this. I'll even put one down here. I've got 4 blinking cursors. That top one looks like a big giant cursor, but it's in fact just, it's in fact 3 cursors, not 1. And now I can type with 4 cursors. That weird? I'm going to hit undo, put it back the way that it was. All right, let's see what that looks like in a chunk of code. I could go here, here, and here, and type some stuff. See? I'm going to put my word wrap back. Not only can you have multiple cursors, if you hold down Shift and Alt, you can actually do what's called a square selection. I'm holding down Shift and Alt, and I'm clicking with my mouse, and I'm painting a square selection. And then I can type in that area. One common thing you might want to do is do a search, like Control F for find. And I could go and find, for example, this fake word, Donic. Okay. When I have got that word selected, I could hit next, next, next. You see there's 13 instances of that word. Right here, I've got this instance of the word Donic selected. I could type over it, or I could double click on it, or of course use Shift Control right arrow, and then I could say Control Shift L. That selects all occurrences of that current selection. And now those are actually selected, and I want you to note really clearly that there is a flashing cursor at the end of each one. This is a smarter way of doing a search and replace, okay? Certainly I could click on that. I could hit Control H for a search and replace, Control F for a search, Control H for replace. I could change that to foobar, hit enter each time. I'll go ahead and undo that. Or I could Control H and then say replace all, Control Alt Enter. Notice how I'm hovering there and it's giving me a little bit of info. There, I just replaced that. So Donic just became foobar. I'm going to go ahead and Control Z or undo that. Or just pick the one you want, select that, Control Shift L. And now it is selected. Look at that. So again, basic text editing. Probably some of you may have known this. Other ones might be thinking, oh gosh, I didn't know that. That's going to make me faster. Try to avoid getting on the mouse. If you ask yourself, why did I touch the mouse right now? Was it quick? Like I picked a word and double clicked on it. And then I put my hands back on the keyboard. When I grabbed that word Donic a minute ago, you saw me click, click, and I got there. That was fast. I didn't feel bad about that. It was faster than maybe going up here and looking for it. Although I could have certainly hit Control F and typed it. Like I know intentionally, deliberately when I do and don't touch the mouse and when I feel bad about touching the mouse or not. You should just ask yourself, note that you've taken your hand off the keyboard and touched the mouse and say, did that add value? Or was I doing a thing that needed a hotkey? So let's think about some of the basic hotkeys that we did today. We've got our Shift plus an arrow. That's a selection. Control plus an arrow that moves by word. Then we combine them, Shift, Control, arrow, select by word. We did Control A, select all. We did Control Shift L, select all of current selection. We did mess around a little bit with brackets, Control Shift backslash, hopped between brackets. We saw that Shift Alt plus our mouse gave us what's called box selection, which is super cool. And then we reminded ourselves of Control C, X, V for, and actually let's make that X, C, and V because that's cut, copy, paste. And then of course, Control Z, your way to glory with undo. Another fun one, Alt, look at that, Alt up and down. I didn't show that. Alt, arrow, moves the line. See the words Alt, arrow right there? I'm going Alt, up and down to move a line. That's way faster than cut, copy, and paste. Alt arrow is useful, but think about this. You ever want to scroll? Control up and down. Control up and down scrolls without having to scroll with your mouse. Again, for everything that you find yourself reaching for the mouse for, there is a keyboard shortcut that you can learn that will make that easier for you. We also had Control F for find, Control H for replace. Again, what do we got here? 10, maybe? And if you think about the arrow ones, it's really just know how to use your arrows and then the modifiers, Shift, Control, Shift and Control, Alt. What are the things? What happens if you mix them up? You can try them. Look at that. I'm hitting Shift, Alt, up and down. That's an interesting one. Just as Alt up and down moves a line, Shift Alt down copies the line down. Certainly I could Shift down, Control C, move the mouse, move the keyboard, Control V, 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 V. I could do that. That's totally cool. But now I know Shift Alt down, down, down copies the line down, or Shift Alt up, up, up copies the line up. Again, modifiers on those arrow keys that I'm already learning how to use, which is cool. And then, of course, we also learned about Shift Alt right arrow. We'll use that for right arrow, which is expand selection. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a contextual selection. Okay? Remind yourself of these, catch yourself when you're doing unnecessary mouse movements, and be deliberate in what you're doing. I'm not asking you to remember 50, 11 different hotkeys, but if you can just remember these, you'll be pretty good in most any text editor. Again, I'm using Visual Studio Code, which is free, but you can do this in 99% of your text editors out there. Not sure if they taught you this in school, but you just learned on my YouTube. If you find this useful, please do take a look at the other videos and subscribe. Smash that bell for the notifications and follow me on Twitter. Thanks.